Hello, you join me at the King's College London, where I'm absolutely thrilled to be speaking to Alex O'Connor, who has the YouTube channel CosmicSkeptic. And Alex, how can I describe it? Alex, I feel, has brought a really interesting, fresh, new approach to tackling religion, to tackling creationism. And I've been following your channel. I think I was one of the subscribers just before it kind of went crazy.
Right, yeah.
So can we back up a little bit, and can you tell me about your background and what led to your interest in religion?
Yes, well, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. It was quite a subtle thing. It was never forced upon me to a great extent. But I went to religious schools, for instance, and because it was so casual, because my family were quite casual about it, it left a lot of room for me to ask questions. And it wasn't that, they shut me down because they didn't like the questions. A lot of the time they just didn't know the answers. So you bring up things like the problem of evil, you bring up things, the main contentions that people have when they first start questioning religion, and nobody could give me a straight answer. And so those questions sort of festered in my mind. And I'm the type of person that I don't like, if there's something I'm interested in and an answer I don't know, I need to get some kind of closure on it. So I started reading books and going online and Googling things, and you come across naturally people like Richard Dawkins, who now, I wouldn't necessarily say is one of my favourite thinkers, but when you first hear of that kind of thing, it's something I've never heard before.
No.
And so I was sort of fascinated by it, and this idea that maybe things can make sense, there can be goodness without God, and it was something I hadn't really explored before. And that excitement that I first felt to think, what if everything I've been taught is wrong or altered or something, it kind of stays with me today when I get excited about learning new things or new angles to take on philosophical approaches or whatever.
Because obviously there are a lot of Roman Catholics, and people don't tend to think of it as being such a terrible thing to be raised a Roman Catholic, but you did approach Richard Dawkins and these other thinkers from the perspective of they must be wrong. Would that be right?
Yes. Well, in the beginning, if you'll pardon the phrasing, I'd say it was certainly a sort of sceptical approach, and it still is to a large extent. Now, when I read Richard Dawkins or any other atheistic thinker, I can pretty much assume I'm going to agree with them before I begin reading. But back then, it was the complete opposite. Like you say, I thought, okay, fine, let's give this a shot then. But it made sense, and even if it didn't convince me, I knew that this position was at least tenable, even if not correct. I knew it was tenable, and I thought, well, where is the flaw? Every worldview has its flaw. Where's the flaw of this? And I dug and dug and dug, and it took me a long time to start finding things to really make me be able to say, see, that's where they've tripped up.
So talk me through what led to you making the decision to start making videos. You'd obviously done this research. What made you think, this is something I need to go on YouTube about?
Well, actually, the philosophy wasn't a huge part of my life. I sort of put it on the side. My first YouTube videos, when I was younger, I just used to make videos about skateboarding or about anything that I could think of. Then I started making sort of, I suppose, social commentaries and things, and it started getting a bit closer to philosophy. And then I made one video. I was going through the internet, and I saw this video from, I think it was from the Watchtower, that cartoon.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, but go on.
It's a horrific cartoon that goes into the story.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't the thing I usually do, and I was worried to sort of approach it because it wasn't my normal topic, but I just couldn't not sort of respond to it. So I made a response, and I think that's where I first saw your channel as well, because once my video was uploaded, in the recommended was your response to the same video, I believe. So I had actually seen your channel before, and that was my most viewed video. It sort of got thousands of views, and this was before I had any subscribers really. And then when the channel started expanding, when I had a share from the Friendly Atheist blog, this video sort of trailed up behind it, but now it's, I think, my second most viewed video of all time.
I can imagine. Well, the thing with that is, it was the Caleb and Sophia video about homosexuals, in which basically a young girl is told that she needs to go and make the life miserable of her classmates, whose parents are lesbians. And I think, I can imagine it must be shocking to actually see a cartoon that's not satire, it genuinely is wanting
Yes.
to leave that impression.
This is one of the main problems when I see videos to respond to, and I get very excited, and then you realise they're satire. And this was one of those cases. I was certain in the beginning this must be a joke, but it wasn't. And it's nothing new to hear religious zealots saying, you shouldn't be homosexual, it's a sin. But to see a cartoon that had been produced, not only to say that, but to direct it specifically at children and to tell them, not only should you not do this, but also you should make sure that nobody around you does either. That was what really shocked me more than anything. And I didn't think I could be shocked by religion anymore, but every day I'm further surprised. But this is one of those cases you just can't let that be. And gladly, the source, at least that I saw on YouTube for the original video, was majorly disliked. The like bar was just non-existent.
Yeah.
However, there were the people who produced it. There are the people who buy into that.
Yeah.
And just to think, even if one person thinks that way, it just astonishes me.
Yeah. But it's quite, when you are raised a JW as I have been, you just know how prevalent it is and that people really do believe that.
Well, I understand. I understand that. This is why I'm very careful not to use ad hominem attacks or to judge people, because if you're brought up in that environment, can you really be blamed if you develop these horrific attitudes towards homosexuals, if that's what you've been taught for your entire life? And so for me, a lot of the time the best way to approach these things is to go like a reductio ad absurdum sort of approach, rather than saying, you're wrong and here's why. Say, okay, well, let's consider this. If you're right, then why is this the case? If you're right, then doesn't that mean this? And so on. And that's how I usually tackle these things.
I've noticed that, and it works so well on a variety of subjects. You've done rebuttals to creationists who've been, casting common misconceptions about atheism and that kind of thing. I guess what I'm most anxious to know is kind of generally, what's your impression of Jehovah's Witnesses, and has that changed recently, or have you learned other things? Or?
Well, it's something that I've never known much about, I must say. And so when I first heard about this event and I was sort of interested in, and after I'd made that video, it became a bit more sort of prevalent in my mind. And so I decided to do a little bit of research. And I'm still very limited in my knowledge, but I was very, very surprised to see the level of shunning. And this is coming from sort of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that I've seen speaking. It's just awful. It reminds me, I'm currently reading the biography of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Muslim apostate, and that didn't surprise me to hear somebody growing up in a fundamentalist Islamic culture being completely shunned for becoming an apostate, effectively. And I couldn't help but draw parallels. And I don't know if it's as severe, I have no idea really. But I can imagine, but in the same sense I can't imagine how it must be to be somebody who is completely shunned, completely turned away from everybody that you know and love, for simply not believing something. And it's not like you can choose to believe something that you don't believe. No. It's not a case of choice. It would be vain to sort of say, yes, I'm going to choose to believe in this. And so to be shunned for it, it shocked me. It really did. That,
I feel, is an element of quote unquote the atheist community that kind of frustrates me a little bit. And I don't know how you feel, but you go on the comment sections of, say, The Friendly Atheist, and there are some people who are kind of saying things like, well, these people are just stupid. If they weren't JWs, they'd probably be in some other religion. And the point of my activism is to try and say it's not about intelligence.
Absolutely.
If you are raised in a religion that says this is true and nothing else is, we have the answers, only our religion provides the path to truth, that's what you're gonna follow.
Yes, perhaps religion is the only institution, or the church is the only institution which can make intelligent people believe and say absolutely ridiculous things. I don't know it. I can't see it occurring anywhere else. It really does take religion for that to happen. And you mentioned the Amazing Atheist as well. Yeah, you're right. The community, Hemant Mehta, I find is very sort of good about the way he goes about things. Very polite, very well mannered. But I get a lot of people saying to me, "Oh, you're a YouTuber, atheist. You must look up to people like the Amazing Atheist." And Well, I don't want to say anything too damning because who knows?
Amazing atheist.
Might get a shout out one day if you're there. Feel free to link me. But it's the approach. Which I'm not gonna sort of shout it down because sometimes these people do deserve to just be ridiculed. But my mission isn't to go in and ridicule people and make them feel bad. Which if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But for me, I want to change people's minds, and that's only going to happen through compassion and empathy, I think.
Do you think your background, growing up in a Roman Catholic family, gave you that compassion?
I think so, because perhaps if I hadn't have gone to a Catholic school, I may still be a Catholic. I needed to be exposed to the ridiculousness, and I'm trying to use that same approach to say not only can atheist arguments win people over to atheism, but also just a fuller understanding of certain religions can make people realise how faulty the logic that they're based on is.
Yeah.
And so I think that influenced the way that I became an atheist through learning about Christianity, growing up in that sense. I'm trying to apply that same method to the people that I respond to by saying, okay, I'll explore your worldview and I'll show you why I think it's wrong without just shouting it down. Instead, just actually sort of running it through its paces and saying, bringing it to its logical conclusion and showing why it's faulty and doesn't work. And
it's such a refreshing approach. And again, please, if you've not seen Alex's channel, it's the CosmicSkeptic. Finally, what really amazes me is that you're doing all this. How old are you at the moment?
I'm newly 18. Yes, just since last month.
I just can't believe what you've managed to achieve at this stage. And I'm wondering where you'll be in kind of 10 years from now.
Well, honestly, neither can I, but I try not to...
This is my claim to fame, you know.
Yeah.
But no, because obviously I was telling you before that with Jehovah's Witnesses we're dissuaded from higher education and college. Yes. And you were telling me before that originally you were doing A-levels in maths, but now you're pursuing philosophy because you realise that's your passion.
It's what I want to do. Yeah. And I feel that it gives me the backing I need to do what I want to do, which is bring... My goal isn't necessarily to make religious people into atheists. My goal is whatever your religious beliefs are or lack thereof, you should be able to back it up with logic. Yeah. I don't care what you believe, as long as you can put forward some kind of philosophically sound argument and tell me why you believe that.
Absolutely. Well, I absolutely applaud that approach.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the interview. Okay. Take care.